So Trevor, I'm going to make you the co-host if that's okay, so you can let people in.
No problem.
I think we are live now. Right? You're live now, looks like. All right, welcome to our weekly capital raising strategy session. Today we have an awesome guest, my good friend Yaakov Smart, a social media ninja for capital raising. Welcome, Yaakov. And a little bit about Yaakov before we get started. Yaakov is a leading expert, and when it comes to attracting high net worth investors and raising capital through LinkedIn. He's an author of Disrupting LinkedIn and has proven tools and techniques for transforming the LinkedIn profiles into priceless capital raising assets. Welcome, Yaakov. We are super excited to have you with us today.
Hi, great to be here, Vinky. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and before we get started, I'm gonna go through a small little disclaimer. This session is strictly for educational purposes and should not be considered a legal, accounting, or investment advice. And if you have any specific questions that's related to investments or financial, please reach out to your CPAs or whosoever to get the information, but this is strictly an educational session. I'm gonna stop that, and Yaakov, you're on. Let me change the, there you go. So you have full screen, so stage is all yours.
Got it. So is this everyone we have live? We got a small group today?
Right now we have a small group, but people might be joining as we get started.
Got it. Yeah, so I wanna do it a little differently than I'd usually do it then. So let me know in the chat box just what how much capital, if you have a capital raising goal for 2022, what that number is. Let me know in the chat box if you're here live. Whatever that number, or a ballpark. Yeah, how much you want to raise in 2022, or how much you raised in 2021. Either one. So Vinky wants to raise 100 million. Okay, solid. Trevor just did a raise for 300K. Cool. Okay, so got some capital raising experience. Angel raised $1 million in December 2021. Awesome. Congrats on that. That's big. Cool. So we've got some people who have a little bit of experience. So is it safe to say, and we'll make this more interactive than something that would be a little different. Is it safe to say that for those of you who want to, you want to raise 5 million, is it safe to say that your biggest challenge right now, and if it's not, let me know that too, and I'm just kind of looking at you, is that you've kind of exhausted your warm network, right? You've got people who have money, and maybe there's some more money you can raise there, but you need to be building your investor database. Is it safe to say that that's kind of the biggest issue?
So for me, I didn't do a good job creating the investor database. So it was limited to about half the people I knew. Now I've built it to almost triple what I had when I did my raise. Yeah. But I didn't have the previous existing relationship yet documented. So I couldn't raise from them even though I knew them.
Got it. Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about using LinkedIn as a tool for building that investor database, right? So all of you, I'm sure, are on LinkedIn. Okay. That's not, what we're not talking about how to get on LinkedIn. And I'm sure some of you are doing things on LinkedIn. So what we can do, I wanted to do a couple of things here that are going to be neat. So what we can do is either Trevor or Angel or, Vinky even, if we could have one of you guys kind of step into the spotlight. I'm curious. I want to take a look at your LinkedIn profile in real time. I want to find out what you're doing on LinkedIn to grow your investor database. And then we can start, we can get in some real-time examples, right? And
I'm start to show you how you do it.
You like me to share one? You like me to share mine or somebody?
Yeah, so Trevor, you said something first. So let's pull you up and kind of take a look. And there you are, actually. Funny enough, I hop on LinkedIn and I see you right here.
So that's because I hang out with Vinky.
That's right.
I pick my friends well.
Absolutely, she's awesome. All right, cool, man. So you're in Austin, you've got, 10x going. Cool. So what are you doing on LinkedIn right now to build relationships with investors?
So mostly I'm just posting. So, I've done Yona's LinkedIn challenge a couple of times, building up posting. I've been on a podcast mission. So I've been posting the podcast, posting when Vinky recorded my sessions. So I've been building myself up as what I'm going to call a expert in talking about passive investing and doing that through podcasts.
Okay. And how's that been going? And I mean, in terms of reach, and what metrics do you have on that in terms of how many people you're
I'm
reaching?
still only talking to who I'm connected with. I'm not finding new people yet.
Okay. So
I
you've
should
got,
say that. I am finding new people, but there are always people that want to sell me something. Because I'm active, and so I get a million debt lenders that contact me, and Bitcoiners, and
okay. So you're doing a lot of posting and commenting, but it's not generating any leads, it sounds like.
yeah, nobody like, oh, I'd like to learn about real estate investing. I've not had that question come to me.
Yes, so that's an issue. So let's talk about that, because I have a client, he said this eloquently the other week. He's like, I'm posting a lot to LinkedIn, but it feels like I'm preaching to the choir. He's like, feels like the real estate people give me a thumbs up. Great. They're all active investors. They're not exactly the types of people that you want to target, right? So when we talk about passive investors, right? And my approach is a little different than anything, most people have heard. It's very innovative. I think, Trevor, you've been through one of our workshops.
Yeah.
And you've seen a little bit of it. But my big thing is like, and I'll put this on the whiteboard because that's what we'll do here, is, we can talk about, okay, it always starts with a list, right? So you've got your targeted list, potential investors. Talk about how to create that list on LinkedIn. We can certainly, some of you already have large LinkedIn networks, maybe from a different career, different business, but we want to specifically target passive investors, people who are not in real estate full-time, people who are not in commercial real estate full-time, people who are not in investment management full-time. Okay, so we want to target those people. And then we want to be able to, and you're creating content, you're bringing on podcasts, it can be a great thing. You're just not quite leveraging it in an effective way, right? Because what if we were to leverage that content that you're creating through a direct message, right? So now you have the potential investor. Let's say they receive, we'll say M1, M2, M3. Let's say there's 3 different messages they're getting from your personal profile. And let's say the first message is a podcast you've been on, right? So instead of you pitching something out of the gate, which is not good thing to do, and it's also an illegal thing to do in a lot of cases, now they're getting, hey, so-and-so, great to connect. By the way, if you're ever curious about real estate investing, here's a podcast I was featured on. Boom. Now you can guarantee it's getting in front of them, right? Versus you just post something, I call it posting and hoping, right? Like posting and hoping that someone reaches out, and they usually don't, right? That's kind of how that game works. And now you're doing what you want to do with establishing your expertise. And now maybe the second message, you're offering them a giveaway, or, I'm big on investor attraction webinars. Like, hey, we've got this training, want to take a look, want this free thing. And now you're getting people on your email list, right? So it's a really great point. I'm glad you brought it up, right? Because I think a lot of people in this space are so frustrated. They spend so much time and energy posting and figuring out what to say, and it only gets you so far, right? And then I think that's kind of the issue that you've been experiencing with building your database there, right? So does that make sense, Trevor?
It does, yeah.
Cool. So the next thing that we kind of want to get into, and I'll share some of the slides I've got here as well. So we talk about attracting investors, and for those of you who want the notes for this, check out linkleads.us GOB notes. What you'll do, enter your name, enter your email, and you'll get the kind of the notes of the highlights that I'm going to go over. Okay. And we'll only email you like 20,000 times a day. So it's okay. It's not like we'll email you a lot. I'm kidding. And it's just one of those things. You email the notes, you'll be in good shape there. So yeah, what we're talking about today is using LinkedIn to build your investor database. The people who are pros at this stuff, the people raising 10 million plus a year, as a lot of you know, the money's in the database, right? I was just on a call earlier. the gentleman who's raised a lot of money. We were just talking about how it's so important to build that database, right? That's what LinkedIn is for, right? It's not about getting likes. It's not about getting getting comments. It's not about even growing a following. It's about building that database of deal-ready investors. So when you have money that you need to raise, you can raise the money and sleep at night, right? That's the really, really big thing. So, when we talk about the methodology, right, who this is for, obviously you're here for a reason. You want to raise more money. You want to find investors beyond your current network. For those of you who don't know me, I'm not going to put a whole lot of time harping on this. Been in this space for a while. Personally use these strategies. As a result, I think over 30 million have been raised in private money using these types of systems, right? So it flat out works. And it's a much more streamlined approach to investor attraction than, let's say, posting content or, a lot of these other things people are spending a considerable amount of money on, right? So authored the book, that's me, yours truly. And we're talking about, okay, LinkedIn's changes, right? So where has LinkedIn evolved? Where has LinkedIn shifted? Well, it's become much more of an interactive platform, right? There's a lot more people engaging. Their conversations were up last year, I think by 200%, right? So people are more engaged, they're more focused. And it's just become much more of a social platform. A lot of people are getting tired of Facebook and Instagram. The reason why LinkedIn for finding investors is you can build hyper-targeted lists of passive investors. That's the key thing here, right? And you can intentionally put yourself in front of those people rather than the folks who are, also doing syndication. So for example, there's a list of 28,000 plus tech founders in the state of California, okay? Got owners of dental practices, right? So then maybe for some of you, dentists might be ideal investors. Got attorneys, like, any type of people. And I'll just, I'll show you here in a few minutes on some of the more detail on what that might look like. But also, you're getting more exposure on LinkedIn profile and business pages. Okay. So what that means is the more posting, if you're being consistent, you are getting more exposure. And other than your website, your LinkedIn profile is your most important online asset, right? So it's really key to have something that positions you as an expert, to have something that it also stands out, right? Because a lot of people in this space, and we'll look at Trevor, have profiles that either aren't fully filled in or that don't make them stand out, right? That don't really speak to what potential passive investors are looking for, right? Or, it doesn't speak to what they really need to know out of the gate to start to trust you more, okay? So, and also personality-driven content, video, just a lot more happening on LinkedIn with that. So, when we talk about a LinkedIn profile, and we'll, got kind of some standard things, you want to be asking yourself, what would my perfect investor think, right? Some of you, and this is where there's a little bit of variance, right? Some of you are looking for people who maybe it's going to be their first passive investment, right? Maybe it's something where most of their money's in the stock market. They don't really understand passive real estate investing just yet, right? Some of you are looking for people who have at least 150K to place, who've been part of passive investing deals before, right? Different audiences. That's really an important distinction because you're going to be speaking differently to those people. It's two very different mindsets. Okay. So really big thing to consider when crafting your profile. So for example, just Trevor, like, his would be, if I look at his profile as a potential passive investor, this is for people who are probably going to be getting to their first passive investment opportunity or thinking about it, or maybe they don't really understand that you can invest in real estate without the headaches of being a landlord, right? So this would be geared more towards them. And it seems like those are the types of people that he's kind of going for, right? And a lot of this stuff right here, this is very cool. But again, if I'm looking at it, and I want to drill home on this point, I'm a potential passive investor. I'm online where there's a lot of distractions, we all know, and you have a couple of seconds to really reel me in, right? So, okay, real estate investor, passionate entrepreneur, access learner. Okay, what's in it for me, right? Okay, you've been a successful vice president. Cool. What's in it for me? I understand that you're passionate about real estate. Okay, that's awesome. I understand you've done all these things, but I've got questions. Like, for example, why multifamily, right? Or, is it a Ponzi scheme? How do I know you're legit, right? Or, what's your track record? Where can I go to learn more? So rather than ignoring those things and, opening with the story, you want to be able to do both and address those on your profile as well. It's so important, right? So what would my perfect investor think, right? Problem is, like I said, they don't trust you. So it's about building trust, having the right messaging in place. They're hearing about the next big thing all the time. I think right now we're kind of in a golden era of alternative investing, right, which is really cool. And they didn't become affluent by being careless with their money. It's really important to understand. Sometimes people don't quite get that, right? They've been burned before. So they want to be educated. They want to tell their colleagues and associates. They want more people they can trust, and they want alternative investments for higher returns. So it's about speaking, okay, are you looking for someone who's just getting into passive investing, or that person who's already been a passive investor, they get it, they just want the right opportunity, right? And I think Vinky, you're looking for more of those types of people if you want to raise 100 mil this year. So what is the methodology? What is the system? I want to give you an overview. We could talk about this stuff for hours, but I want to make sure that you at least understand where this could tie in for you for finding investors beyond your current network. Okay. So list building is huge. What do we mean by list building, right? So there's 5 ways to build lists of potential investors on LinkedIn. Okay. First way is this little bar over here, this free search, we call it, right? Second way is to search by LinkedIn groups, search who's inside LinkedIn groups. All right. The third way is to be able to take an email CSV, upload that, maybe from a list that you've bought, and connect with people there. Okay. Fourth way is through LinkedIn ads, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in this space, right? It's not the place to be advertising. Fifth way, most powerful way that our clients use, that you'll want to use too, Sales Navigator. Okay. Why is that? Well, we go to lead filters. See here, there's a number of different ways you can segment something. And the sweet spot that you want is you want behavior, you want net worth, and you want, interest, right? So for example, there's all sorts of groups based around real estate investing, right? So and one thing that we talk about too is streams of commonality, right? So for example, Trevor, who we just had pulled up, he's in Austin, right? So if I'm working with Trevor and we're talking about, okay, who do we start to target, to start building these relationships? Austin is one angle, right? People living in Austin. There's a lot of people in Austin who have money. Okay. Another example, right? So Trevor's been in, just cool, iFly. Cool. I've actually done one of those. It's kind of fun. So iFly, right? So people I don't necessarily know iFly employees necessarily, but people who have been VPs at similar types of companies. And then let's see if Trevor, I don't know if you went to college or anything, you went to school, but smart guy. That's probably a wise decision. Yeah, it's usually a wise decision. People learn that usually after the fact, like I did, but awesome. So he's got Austin, he's got, learning is interesting. So there's different groups for entrepreneurs, right? There's VPs of larger companies, right? iFly is kind of a larger company, so that's another angle, right? So we'd look at, okay, in the entertainment space, maybe there's VPs of sales, for example, in the entertainment space who live in Austin. Boom. He has things in common with those people. And it's someone that, it creates a stream of commonality, it creates this potential for rapport, right? So we want to take as much of that rapport building and trust building, and we want to hack it as much as we can through Messenger because it's online, right? So we build a targeted list. There's a number of things you can do. Let's say you wanted people, let's just go Austin, Texas, just run a quick example here. And let's say we wanted business owners, right? So we'd go, I'm just gonna kind of do a quick demo. There's a number of these we could do, but let's say we're going seniority level. Let's say we're going owner. Let's say we're going partner, and let's say we want them to have been business owners for at least 10 years. So they've had a chance to accumulate some money probably, right? Because usually newbies aren't going to have capital to place, not always, but a lot of the time. And now we want to go, let's say, more than 10 years. Let's say, we want them to have some employees, right? So let's say, we go company headcount, right? So we go, let's say we want them to be in the 11 to 50 and then 51 to 200 range, right? So the company's making some real revenue, okay? So now 15,000 people, and then the cherry on top, this is just one quick example that I wanted to demonstrate would be, let's exclude the people who are in real estate businesses, okay? Because, a lot of those folks are active investors. Let's exclude the people in commercial real estate. Okay. And let's exclude the people in investment management. So now we've got about 14,000 people in different types of businesses, business owners in the Austin area. This person's in pharmaceuticals, so we've got some, this person's been in business for 23 years in Austin. He's got at least 11 employees, probably has some money. He probably is doing okay, not always, but the probability is high, right? So these types of folks, this is a targeted list. We could go a layer deeper. We could pull, there's about 25 different groups based on investor interest, right? So we could start pulling groups. So now all of a sudden, what do we know about these people? They're not in real estate full-time. They're interested, if we put in some real estate investing groups or some alternative investing groups, they're interested in alternative investing. They're not in real estate full-time. They live in Austin. They're probably high net worth, high income individuals. Now we've got our specific list, right? Now we've got our potential investors to start building relationships with. And Trevor happens to live in Austin, right? So they've got at least that one thing in common, right? So that's just one example. Everyone's going to be a little different on the list building. The more dialed in you are in your list building strategy, the easier it's going to be to get responses, book calls, and grow your investor database. So it's a really key thing there, right? Some other examples here as well, right? And then we talk about, okay, accelerating trust using your messaging, right? This is where it's really important. Obviously, your LinkedIn profile, there's 3 places to accelerate trust using your messaging on your note sheet: profile, your content, and then the messages you send out to people, right? So profile, posting, direct messaging, right? So profile, we talked about it, strong first impression, increase in visibility, got social proof, got instant authority, right? When you do this the right way, okay? So common blunders to avoid. I touched up on some of these. It's not a resume. It's not about, sounding super suave or super sophisticated or, having like a big, powerful resume. It's not about that. It's not about, having a million different things listed there or, being scattered, right? A lot of people make this mistake. And it's not about just coming out, straight up pitching and saying, hey, we have the highest returns ever. Go call now, to like that kind of stuff. Also not cool. All right. So instead, we're talking about the foundation for attracting the investors you want. We're talking about something that builds trust, that builds value with potential investors. Okay. That anticipates some of their objections and inspires action. Okay. So when it comes to content or posting, right? So big on smart posting instead of hard posting. So it's not about posting 5 times a day or 3 times a day. Okay. It's more about being intentional with what you post and when you post. And sometimes you can even not post at all. I'm not big on posting, because I'm big on direct messages and direct lead generation, because that's where the money is. Okay. And posting, I look at it as more of a supplement. Okay. So if it's congruent with what your potential investors actually care about. So it's why it's important to know who that potential investor is. Okay. It's important to know how to make the algorithm work in your favor. Okay, so LinkedIn has a way it distributes content. For example, right now, polls are really big. So if we go, what do we mean by that? So if we go in our feed, there's Vinky. So if I go new post, and I can just kind of scroll through here, like, what's popping up in front of me? We see a lot of like picture posts, we see a lot of this kind of stuff, right? So, these are big right now. Polls, I think, are actually not as big as they were, but they were really big right now for content. They were kind of trending, right? So that's content. And then the most important thing, like we talked about, is the messenger funnel, right? So there's 3 ways to give value through LinkedIn Messenger, okay, on your note sheet. Number 1, offer a piece of content, right? We talked about it earlier. It could be a webinar, cheat sheet, maybe a podcast you've been on. Ideally, you want someone opting in. Ideally, you want someone grow in your database from beyond LinkedIn. Okay. And this isn't about cold soliciting deals. Okay. What you don't want to do is, when you've got a raise, just spamming people like, hey, we got this deal. Can we count you in for 50K? Or that's just, it's not an effective strategy if they don't know you, right? So we want to take those relationships beyond LinkedIn. Second way to give value is to call it a problem. Maybe it's a tax issue they're having that you could help offset. Maybe it's the stock market volatility, right? The more specific, the better. And the third way is by asking questions, right? Testing their level of interest around passive investing, or if they, if they've had experience as a real estate investor, if they've ever, are they familiar with apartment buildings as an asset class, for example, right? And then that's the key thing with Messenger, right? And you can automate that process too. And I'll just kind of put this on the whiteboard as well. So let's say we have, 3 messages. You can automate all this. Then you're only responding when people are actually responding to you. Okay, so it's a really key distinction there, right? So you can automate this process, and then we have if/when responses that a VA can do, or when someone has different types of ways that they're responding and engaging with you. Okay, so this process can be automated, it needs to be automated. The key thing is it needs to be automated without looking automated. Okay, it's a really, really key thing. So with that said, that's the messenger funnel. The way that most of our clients do it that works really well, especially if you want to scale this, they have something called an investor attraction webinar, which they use as a giveaway. Okay, ideally it's pre-recorded. Ideally, it builds trust at scale. And if you've ever talked with a potential investor, you're getting a lot of the same questions. Okay, so that webinar is what we use on LinkedIn to get people to opt in. And then from the webinar, once they watch that or once they receive the follow-up emails, now they're going to book a call. Okay, now they've booked a call. Now you have someone who's pre-qualified and you built that trust at scale. So LinkedIn is the starting point for developing those relationships and creating that type of system. So what we're going to do here. And then finally, once you've got this going, you can delegate this out to a VA, right? You can certainly have them oversee the system. And the biggest thing, again, it's the messaging, it's the system, and it's the automation. It's setting that up and being able to, imagine you've got 600 connection requests going out per week, right? Imagine. And you have that happening every week, and you're, out of those 600, let's say 150 are connecting, you've got 150 new potential prospects going through this messaging, and you're consistently driving leads and building your investor database, which is where you want to get to, right? So being able to kind of have the system, right? And adding, like Dave here, for example, doing multifamily, he's added to hundreds of investors in an automated, powerful way, right? And the key thing with this approach, it's very strategic. It's not a matter of, hey, we're going to do something to do something, right? Because sometimes as business owners, we fall into the trap of just like taking action for the sake of taking action, right? Or like marketing for the sake of marketing because it's better than not marketing. Instead, being strategic and reverse engineering things, okay? So what I want to do, I'm not going to pitch anything directly here today, just kind of based on the energy here. What I do want to share with you, though, I want to take a couple minutes for some of you watching this right now, and then we'll get into some Q&A and interested in this. Some of you are saying, okay, this is great. I have big capital raising goals. I want to scale this. Is there a way that you can set this up for me? Because there's no way I'm going to figure out the automation. There's no way I'm going to figure out what to say. There's no way I'm going to figure out who to target. How do you work with people, right? So I want to share that very quickly with you. I'll share my screen and kind of give you the overview, and then I'll let you know how you can find out more about it. But the biggest thing that we've kind of discovered, the biggest bottleneck that holds people back with implementing the system, number one is customizing it to meet their capital raising goals, okay, to create the kind of results that they want. That's a really big thing. And the second piece is the setup process, right? How do you create this type of automation? How do you figure out what to say? How do you create these flows, right? Because there's not enough time in the day for a lot of people to figure this out on their own. And the trial and error time can prove to be very, very costly. So what I want to share with you here, and I'll give you a quick snapshot and then we'll get into some Q&A, okay, is something called the Rapid Investor Attraction System, right? And this is how we work with people at the highest level, people who want more of a turnkey option, right? Who are really ready to scale their capital raise a lot more money in 2022. So this is what that includes. And this is specifically for people who want the fastest results possible. They want to save a ton of time, stress, and money. Figuring this out on your own can be tough, okay? And this is really the most turnkey system that's out there, right? Based around your lifestyle goals, getting there in a faster and easier way. So what we do, I'll give you a snapshot. I'm not going to read everything, obviously, here word for word. But we work with you to create a specific strategy we can reverse engineer for growing your investor database, right? That includes the messaging, that includes the automation, that includes the specific targeting, and that includes exactly what to say so that in 100 days, you have something where you're booking at least a handful of calls, potential passive investors every single week, okay? That's what we're going for here, right? So the very first thing that happens is you and I will meet for your personalized VIP ramp-up session. We'll figure out the strategy. We'll figure out what you need to say, what your LinkedIn system is going to be, and that way you can kind of sit back, relax as we build out the system for you. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build your perfect investor attraction webinar. Okay, this is an automated funnel, pre-recorded presentation that answers a lot of the biggest questions and that builds trust at scale. And if you don't have this, the reason why we added this into the mix is, you don't want to be talking to 15 people a week who just want to pick your brain and waste your time, right? Who don't have capital to place, who aren't going to be real passive investors. So the webinar weeds people out, and before anyone schedules a call with you, they actually go through and they fill out a form, right? So it's very, very powerful. You're going to save yourself a lot of time this way. Okay. We build that for you. That includes your webinar slides. That includes your registration page, your thank you page, webinar automation, 10-day post-webinar emails. We actually write those for you and just set everything up for you, right? And as you can see, it would take a while to kind of figure this stuff out. And then we also set up the LinkedIn and OPN systems for you. So all your LinkedIn messaging templates, including your profile, LinkedIn targeting, we actually pull your first 2,500 potential investor list, your LinkedIn automation, OPN templates, pretty much everything you're going to need to run this and execute this, we set everything up for you. So you don't have to figure this out. Okay. And then from there, we will get you launched. So you'll be up and running. Real conversations are happening with potential investors. And then you can either choose to kind of oversee it and delegate it, or have a virtual assistant who oversees the system, right? So that way you've got a system that's truly automated. It's working for you month after month, continuously growing your investor database. Because those of you, I think everyone here has raised a decent amount of money. The money's in the database like we talked about earlier. So even if you don't have a deal coming up next month, the sooner you get this process started, the easier it's going to be to build your database, the easier it's going to be to scale your capital raising and raise more money, right? So, and then continued support and guidance, making sure at the end of the 100 days, you have a well-oiled machine. So that's everything that's included. No, it's for some, not for others. It's specifically for you if you want the fastest results possible. So what you're going to do, this is by application only. So what you'll do, you'll actually go and I'm just going to have you, because we've got kind of an intimate group here, I'm going to put my email in the chat box. Shoot me over an email, Yakov@linkleads.us with the word VIP in the subject line. Okay. No obligation when you do this. My assistant's going to respond and say, hey, here's the form, fill this out. If it seems like a good fit, we'll chat some more and decide, what the timeline is, what the best fit is for you, and make sure this is going to get you to where you want to go. So shoot me over an email, Yakov@linkleads.us, put VIP in the subject line. If you're at least curious to learn more about it, we'll send you the form. And then you and I can hop on a call, answer any questions you have, and we'll go from there. So with that said, I want to get into some Q&A with some time that we have left today. Angel says, regarding the LinkedIn search function, there's a follow-up to that. Is this only available in the premium version? Yeah, these specific searches are only available in Sales Navigator. The basic searches will give you some things, but for best results, you're going to want to use those searches. I'm also going to grab a sip of water here because I've been talking a while, doing like my second type of presentation that I've just been doing back to back. So I've been talking a lot. Cameron's grabbing some water too. He's grabbing his coffee. So see you.
I'm going to ask you a question while you're sipping the water. So you said we need to have a sales navigator. That's number one, right? So that way you can increase the exposure, or you can find the people by region or occupation, or I think you can do it by search by their income too. There's multiple factors, right? You can search people, but then you subscribe to that. And also you said you can automate the messaging process. So I'm pretty sure you're using some other app, some other tool for that. So that's another subscription that we have to have that for that tool for the automation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you could do it manually, but I would say the time investment costs a lot more than the automation, right? And this is where, and it's a great question too, because like the mentality here, so sometimes people are like, around hiring a VA, I'll hire a VA when this event happens, when I raise another 10 million, or whatever, and it's just like, well, do it proactively instead of reactively. It's going to free up time. You'll never go back. And the automation, the more you can automate and streamline, not just with capital raising, but also with your syndication business in general, the happier you're going to be. I mean, that's kind of what we've seen across the board. The people get turned off. The first outreach doesn't come from a virtual assistant, Angel. It comes from your profile. It doesn't come from a nothing comes from a virtual assistant. It's coming from you directly. And if you're doing it right, it doesn't even look automated. Like no one, it doesn't say this message was automatically sent. It's a personalized message. You're just doing it at scale. So if you're doing it right, they don't get turned off. It's a person to person. It's coming from your personal profile. So.
Nice. Anybody has any more questions, please ask now. Let me
On the
see.
automation though, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's coming from your profile, but it's not necessarily you typing it, right?
No, it's set it and forget it. You plug it into the automation and then it goes out. You can be going, let's say 50 messages a day.
How does LinkedIn not figure out that that's like a setup, like it's a programmed?
Well, the automation kind of works within its algorithm. So they, it's software development stuff. For those of you who joined us a little late, and we talked about capital raising goals earlier. We talked about big challenges, and what I was sharing is you're going to reach, if you haven't yet, there's a point you've raised a certain amount of money and you've exhausted your warm network, right? And some people get there sooner rather than later, and some people don't have a big warm network to start. And this is really the big problem that we solve when we work with people, and in all these strategies is, how do you continuously build that investor database? Because your ability to raise capital and close deals and have that power comes down to the value and the power of your investor database, right? And this is what this strategy is used for. The more you can build that database of high net worth individuals who want to be passive investors, the more capital they have to place, it really allows you to scale this thing, right? So that's what this process is so powerful for doing.
So in this lead generation process, what is the, I would say, what kind of response do we get? I mean, do we really getting good leads that we can work with, or how do you nurture those relationships after that?
Well, you look at, okay, how many calls are you booking? And are these truly passive investors, right? So sometimes people look at response rate. It's important, but it's not as important as, at the end of the day, how many investors are you adding, right? I always use this example. Would you rather get a 5% response rate and add 3 high net worth investors every week, or get a 25% response rate and have a bunch of calls with people who just want to pick your brain, right? It's like, it's a different ball game. So we measure it: leads generated, opt-ins, calls booked, and then ultimately deal ready investors. And then at the end of the day, actual money raised. Right, so that's how you measure it. Yannick, for automation or specific softwares, you offer the automation. Yeah, there's a couple of specific softwares we use. I don't get into specifics on these types of things just because there's a lot of ways to misuse them. But yeah, there's third-party softwares. If you reach out via email, I can send you a link to one, the one that I'd recommend. So, and there's a bit of a learning curve there, but once you get it down, it's cool because it does a lot of the stuff that like a assistant would do for you manually. It just does that automatically, so it's pretty solid.
Wow, that sounds so good. Like very tempting. Like I wanted to jump on the call with you after this to figure out more details. How to do that.
Here's kind of the other thing. Sometimes it almost sounds too good to be true. It's like, well, you can really automate this stuff. Yeah, you can. Why don't most people? They don't know what they don't know, or they don't have the wherewithal to set it up, right? Because there's a few different things. There's the messaging, there's the targeting, there's the automation, and then there's like actually looking at it systematically. So it's a lot of moving parts. That's why we have the kind of the turnkey solution where we just set everything up for you. But certainly, yeah, the automation is such a big time saver. It's an energy saver too. And you guys are probably the same way. I hate doing like repetitive little things like that. Drives me crazy. It makes me unhappy. So it's either got to be automated or delegated.
That's true. My other question that comes to my mind is your program is only for 90 days, right? You set up all the basic tools and all the processes so that you're attracting the right clients, and then you're adding into your databases. But what after 90 days, because you need to keep on nurturing those relationships and it needs to keep on going. So your database growing. So what efforts would you recommend something after that too? Or do you have anything else, following the initial program?
So the initial program is kind of running on its own, right? So after 90 days, 100-day program, after the 100 days, what's happening is every month, you've got the system that kind of works in the background. Ideally, you have a VA who's kind of overseeing it, right? Just making sure that the funnel is filling, right? That's the expression. And then after that, let's say there's going to be a percentage of people on your email list who don't book calls with you initially, right? And that's where email marketing comes in. That's where, there's different ways of nurturing the leads. What I always tell people though is, you want to have I'll put this on the whiteboard, right? And that's why, the funnel and the webinars is key that we talked about briefly. It's about having that, you got the front door, right? That's, we'll call it the investor attraction webinar. And think of it as a one-to-many way of building trust and inspiring action, getting calls, right? And then you've got something called the traffic, right? So what are the ways to drive traffic and get people in the door? LinkedIn, which is what we're talking about here, great way. And the mistake that a lot of people make, well, first of all, they don't have a front door that actually works, that's automated, like this webinar. Second of all, they don't have specific traffic sources that are working to drive potential investors in the front door. And the third mistake is they're constantly trying to add different funnels or different cheat sheets or reports or create different content instead of, hey, you've got one front door. As you're scaling your marketing, now you're just adding other channels, right? So, LinkedIn is one. You could be going on podcasts. We teach OPN, so it's getting more people through that front door, getting more of the right people through that front door. And the other big thing is, having those channels working for you, and kind of having it be streamlined. And then on the back end, you've got your email list, the email marketing. That's a different conversation, but we'll give you a strategy for how do you keep getting in front of people. And Vinky, you've got some great value you're adding through these meetups, right? So you can invite people to these types of things. So you've got some of those systems in place already. But the continuous, we call it the traffic game, is continuing to drive more people in that front door. Where a lot of people get it wrong is they don't have a front door and they're trying to be everywhere and nothing's really happening. So that's kind of another challenge there that we kind of solve with that.
Interesting. Any more questions for Yakov?
This was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I don't see anything on the social media either. And Yakov, how do people reach out to you? I know you shared your email address in the chat, but can you share with us so that we have it on the recording?
Yeah, easiest way to do it. So I'll put it on the whiteboard because that's what we're doing here. So we'll go. You can also find me on LinkedIn, obviously. Gotta say that. So easiest way to do it, just reach out. And then for those of you who just kind of want to take that next step and then get that turnkey solution, just email VIP in the subject line. We'll get you the form and then we can find a time for us to chat.
All right, perfect. That sounds super nice. And then everybody, feel free to reach out to Yakov if you have any further questions. But I think this was a very informative session. I'm kind of blown away to see all this automation because I know I'm like a huge proponent of automation because automation works and makes your life much easier. Because why do the repetitive work yourself when you can just automate it and make your life easier? And then less for your VAs too, right? Because if you automate the emails, it's going to be much easier. They're just clicking on it and the email is getting sent and you know exactly how you're communicating with your investors versus, having your VA type in, maybe spelling mistake, maybe grammatical mistake, and then you won't look good, All those kind of aesthetics has been taken care as well with the automation. I love automation.
Exactly. It removes the human error. That's one of the biggest things, and it saves you a ton of time too.
That's so true. I like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me. This was great. Good connecting with you. I saw some familiar faces here, which is always nice. And I'll talk to you later. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Yakov. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye. All right, guys, I'm going to stop the live streaming.